Welcome to Shadow Crown Book Club
with Sabeena and Millie. I'm Sabeena.
which that should be Millie.
Yep. This is our Get to Know Your Host episode to give you a little introduction to who you're listening to.
Yes. We're going to be telling you about what books we like, how we started the podcast, and just all things us, I guess.
Yep. You want to go first?
No, you can go first.
Okay. I'm Sabeena. I'm 24. I read a lot when I was younger. My mom literally, I grew up listening to Harry Potter. Like, she would just reread it constantly to us, like,
Yeah.
all the time, along with every other book she could find. But we're big Harry Potter fans. And then in middle school and high school, once, like, we started getting books, like, to read for, like, class and stuff, I kind of, like, I lost the love of reading because it became, like, a chore, you know? Then I got to college. I read, like, 50 Shades of Grey because I just wanted to know what the hype was about.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, you know, this is pretty cool. And then I just stopped reading again because I got so, like, burned out with school and all the reading I had to do with then. I just didn't want to, like, be reading in my free time too. Yeah. Which is ridiculous because now it's all I do in my free time is read. But yeah, I finished college, did my master's, then got burned out even more. And then I randomly saw a book on TikTok, and I said, you know what, maybe I'll try giving reading another chance, you know? Yeah. And that book was From Blood and Ash, and I got hooked, to say the least. I immediately started, like, I finished that, like, the first 4 books that were available, I finished them all within, like, a week. Since I started, and it took me, like, 3 days to get started on the first book, and I finished it within 2 days. Mm-hmm. Then I read the next one in a day, and then the next one in less than a day, probably. I just did not stop reading, nonstop. And I was, like, going through, like, a weird time in my life where I just didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. So, like, it gave me so much, like, it gave me an escape. It was such, like, and that's what books are, like, they're literally an escape.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then from then on, I just kept reading, and every time I tried reading something that wasn't a romance or fantasy or anything along those lines, I got bored. Yeah. I was like, if it's not something like that, like, I wish would happen or anything, I'm like, you know. Whenever I read, like, mystery or thrillers, I just don't really get that into it, but give me a romance book and yeah. I will finish it.
You're more like a adult or new adult kind of person. Yeah. I don't think you're much of a young adult.
Yeah. Like, I'll read a good YA if it's recommended to me by someone, and someone I trust. Someone whose book recommendation I trust. Yeah. But, like, if I'm going to pick,
adult books.
Some spice is nice.
Rated R.
Yeah. I love fantasy. I love romance. I love when they're together. And then, yeah, that's me. I'm married, happily. And I have a daughter, and I love my life. But even with that, life can get really stressful, and so having an escape is necessary. Whether you're married or not, whether you have a kid or not, like, yeah. Whether you're just alive, you need some sort of escape, whether it's going to the gym, like, yeah, keeping plants alive, which kudos to you if you can do that.
Right. I do not have a green thumb.
Why do you think I have so many Lego flowers? But, and to that, for me, is reading, like, that's just the perfect escape for me. But, like, without, like, actually, like, needing an escape, but, like, wanting one. Yeah. You know? I think that's what's so, like, awesome about books. Yeah. And that's me.
Okay, so I guess I'm taking over. I'm Millie. I'm 27 years old. If you were watching the video, I do not like 27, so yes, I am 27. I am a mom of 2. I started reading back in high school. Was the first time, like, I actually, like, enjoyed reading. I wasn't really a kid reader. My mom read a ton. She was, like, bookworm, like, whole, like, library worth of books just sitting on her dresser. And I was like, Mom, why do you read so much? And now as a mom, I'm like, I get it, because she was a stay-at-home mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I was like, I get it, Mom, I get it. But I read the last Hunger Games was, we had to read it in school. So, like, I read it and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I got into Divergent, which I will never forgive. The ending of Divergent, like the ending of the series, still to this day cannot forgive her. And I read 50 Shades of Grey in high school. I was a senior, so I mean, I wasn't super
It wasn't like
young.
you were a freshman.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, like didn't know what that was.
But I skipped over a lot of those scenes because I'm like, I don't know if I want to read this ton of stuff. Got into college and lost my love of reading so bad. Like, I could not even pick up a book. I was so burnt out with school. And, like, I was doing literature, and I'm like, I don't want to read fun books because I'm already reading boring books.
Exactly.
And if you like the classics, I'm sorry. Personally did not. So, I didn't start picking up reading until 22 after I had
2022.
2022.
Not the age 22.
Sorry. After I had my second daughter, because I was in a very bad postpartum depression, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and we're military wives, so
Right. That's true.
I forgot to mention that. And I saw on TikTok everyone raving about It Ends With Us, and I was like, you know what? Let me go. I bought it, read one chapter. I was like, nope, don't feel like reading. And then a couple weeks later, I'm like, oh, maybe I should read that book that I bought. Like, and read it, sat down and read it after the girls went to sleep, read it in one sitting. I loved it, and I was like, I need to read more of this lady's
That
writing.
one, I read that one in one sitting too.
Yeah.
That was probably like my first one after I finished from Blood and Ash, like when I was trying to get like into other stuff.
Yeah.
I got it in one of my book of the months, and I just was like, you know, like I didn't know anything about it. I had no concept of what it was gonna be about, and
I didn't either.
Yeah, I just got hooked.
A little bit about me is I like to go into books blind. I do not like to know anything about a book. All I need to know if it's a romance, YA, or adult.
Yeah, same.
I do not want to know anything about a book. So yeah, I went into It Ends With Us blind. I went to the library and checked out every book they had of Colleen Hoover and read all of them. And then I went on TikTok, and this book, Fourth Wing, was going crazy, and it was wild, and just everything on there. And I was like, you know what? I should read this book. And so I did, and that was my first like high fantasy, or I guess not high fantasy, but this type of fantasy, as in like adult fantasy, I guess, because Divergent is kind of like a dystopian fantasy, but young adult. So yes, I read Fourth Wing, got hooked, and reread that book so many times until Iron Flame came out, and then read that book, listened to the audio so many times. I'm like, okay, I should probably read something else because I know this book word for word. And then I heard about this book named ACOTAR, Court of Thorns and Roses, and I fell in love, read all of those, like back to back to back, and then jumped into Throne of Glass, read those back to back to back, and then I read Crescent City back to back. It was like I was just in a fantasy kind of mode, and I read a lot of hockey romance and like other stuff before reading
hockey romance.
I know, I love hockey romances. Before I read these fantasy books, and I was like, whoa. Like, I was not expecting to fall in love with this type of fantasy. And because I always thought, oh no, I'm not a fantasy. And this is kind of more like romantasy, but still, I loved it. Loved the fantasy aspect as well.
Yeah.
And then we became friends.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, you love reading? I love reading. Let's become friends.
Don't skip the best part. I said, oh, you read too? What kind of books do you read? And she just goes, I just look at her, I said, smut. And she goes, I said, me too! Let's be friends!
And then I was like, hey, do you want to read a book together?
Yeah, I was like, we talked about how we'd always wanted to like try like buddy reading like with someone else, and we're like, well, you've done it with your mom.
I've done it with my mom, and she's read every book that I've read if she could get it in Spanish because she speaks Spanish. So I was like, I need someone that can like read the books that she cannot read.
Yeah.
Because they don't have it in her language.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you want to buddy read a book with me?
I was like, yes, absolutely, I want to. It's then, like, whenever I'm done, I have no one to talk to about it. Like, I'm just like, oh, well, this is just over.
I talked to my husband, but he's like, okay.
He's like, okay, that's great. I'm really happy for you. I'm glad you enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. And then we saw that we both had...
I sent pictures of my entire library and like circled all the ones that I haven't read yet, all the ones I have physical copies of and everything, because I only read physical books right now.
I read ebooks and physical books.
Yeah. And
I listen to audiobooks, so I'm all aspects.
I'm physical book only. But I sent her a picture of all of my books and circled all the ones that I haven't read yet, and she was like, okay, these are the ones that I have as well that I haven't read. Yeah. And we landed on Phantasma by Kaylee Smith right here, and we buddy read it, and like it was something we were just like texting each other like
every couple chapters we're like, what chapter are you on? Yeah. And then like we'll be like similar and we're like, oh my gosh, this just
what did you think of this?
Yeah. And then after we read the book, we FaceTimed and we're just like yapping about this book for
probably
hours.
Like 4 hours.
Yeah, it was pretty long. And then we decided to read another book, more like a palate cleanser, because she told me about From Blood and Ash. I was like, oh, we should buddy read that one. I was like, okay, we need.
Don't get me wrong. I tell everyone who tells me that they like books to read From Blood and Ash. Like I'm like, it's like my comfort series. It's it's my trophy series. You know, this entire like shelf is it. So I tell everyone, but I was like, this would be a really good buddy read for us.
Yeah.
Because I've been really wanting to reread it again. I've already read it like multiple times, but like I've been trying to get back into it so I can read the new ones.
Yeah, she hasn't read everything in the series.
Yeah,
so far.
And so I wanted to restart it, so I like had everything fresh in my brain. But every time I started restarting it this time, like I just got bored, or I wanted to skip it, and I wanted to be sure I read it.
Yeah,
everything. So by doing the buddy read, it made sure I did it. But
so we read a book to palate cleanse.
Yeah,
and at that one we're like, oh my gosh, like talking about it, and then I messaged her.
It was, How to End a Love Story.
Yes,
that was it. Yeah.
And then I messaged her. I'm like, hey, question. Would you be interested in starting a YouTube/podcast, and we can just yap about books like we're doing right now, but actually just record it and then post it?
Yeah.
And
as Jim from The Office says, I responded with, absolutely, I do.
So here we are. Our first episode will be based on From Blood and Ash.
The first one.
And we're just going to see where this takes us.
Yeah.
We want to build a community with other book lovers.
It's literally for the lovers.
For the lovers.
Yeah.
It's our slogan.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, we probably might maybe read other books, but not likely. I'm lying. We're not going to read other books. It's romance.
No, it's romance.
We might get like fantasy in there too, but other than that, it's romance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so
then,
if you're looking for other stuff, this isn't it. So we're going to post on YouTube, and then we'll also do Spotify podcasts as of right now.
And once we grow, we'll go on other platforms as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them how we came up with our name?
Yeah. We were like, because our plan was that she would come over and we would yap after all the kids went to sleep. And so it'd be like, I was like, oh yeah, it'd be so fun. We could do like a late night book club, But we were like, oh, that's such a great name too. Late night book club. And then we found out that there was already a late night book club and multiple accounts of late night book club. So we're just like, okay, maybe not. Let's find something else.
What do we have in common?
We're like immediately Shadow Daddies. I said, we have talked about it before. We love it. We love a good Shadow Daddy.
Turns out that's taken too.
Yeah. Can you believe that? I mean, I can.
So then we're like, what's another thing we like?
I was like, royalty, crowns. Like, I love
kings,
a good fantasy when there's like
kings and queens.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're like, why don't we just merge
The two.
The two together, and here we are.
Shadow Crown
Book Club.
Yeah, I love it.
So we're going to be posting every Thursday.
Yeah. And then we're going to do like some fun TikTok trends.
So follow us on TikTok.
Yeah.
If you want to laugh with us.
At us. I don't know, whichever you prefer.
And then tune in on podcasts.
Yeah.
Or YouTube. And have our little yap session with us.
Yeah. With our drinks. And today's drink is not sponsored by, but if they would like to sponsor us, we'd be really into it. Dr. Pepper.
I prefer regular Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper.
I only have Diet Dr. Pepper.
But I will take a Diet Dr. Pepper.
Click.
Okay. Until the next video.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye. STUVWXYNZ. Now we know our ABCs.
Next time, won't you sing with me?
Welcome to, fuck, what are we called?
We're gonna have to redo that.
Yeah, let's cut.